Hello, my name is Pete Jones and you're listening to the Dragons Are Real podcast. Some time ago I tried to get into the game of Fate. What drew me to Fate was having descriptors as the character, and I thought what a great idea. Instead of having set skills, set attributes, just have a descriptor for the character. And I bought a ton of the Fate core book, the Fate add-on books, the horror toolkit, the sci-fi toolkit, you name it, I bought it. I even bought Fate Accelerated, trying to work out if I could understand how Fate works. And the trouble with Fate is it uses some concepts that are not familiar to normal role players, and you've got to get your head in a different headspace. And for me, it just wouldn't grok at all. Well, lo and behold, some time ago, I found another set of rules called the Prose Descriptive Qualities system, or PDQ, by Atomic Sock Monkey. And these do a similar sort of thing as Fate using descriptors, but they do it in a much more intuitive way. So today, I thought I would talk about PDQ, so let's get on with it. So, the PDQ rules are available for free online from Atomic Sock Monkey, but they are not SRD or OGL, they are copyrighted rules. The basic way that PDQ works is that characters are defined by free form qualities, and these represent their talents, their skills, their abilities, and also their flaws. And each of these skills is ranked between poor at -2 to master +6. So we have poor -2, average 0, good +2, expert +4, and master +6. And those are assigned to the skills and qualities that you pick. Each task has a difficulty, which is rated from 5 as a trivial task up to 13, an extremely difficult task. And both these ladders, as you were, are represented on the same table. So on the left, we have running from the top -2 to +6 at the bottom. And on the right-hand side, we have the difficulty rank, which is rated from 5 to 13. An easy way to remember this is that at average 0, its difficulty rank would be 7. So that's sort of how they correlate together. And what you do whenever you're doing a task, you're taking the skill in question, you're rolling 2 6-sided dice, and you're trying to beat the difficulty number. And that's as simple as it is. If a task is on the same level as a difficulty rank, i.e. it's within 7 of it, then no roll is needed. It's a simple resolution and you just succeed. So for example, if you're a good +2 detective and you're doing something detective-y, and the GM sets the target number at 9, you don't roll for it, you just do it because that's within your capability. If the roll is not a simple resolution, then it becomes a complicated situation. And what happens is the GM sets the difficulty number, the player picks their appropriate quality, adds it to a 2d6 roll, and tries to beat the difficulty number, or equal it. And if they equal or beat it, then they have completed the task. So that's nice and simple. And then we have conflict situations, and that is when there is some sort of active resistance against the thing that the player is trying to do. And what happens then is both sides roll the appropriate skill. The difference between the winner score and the loser score is the ranks of damage they cause on the other person. So if I rolled a total of 9 and the opposition rolled a total of 5, that is a difference of 4, they would have to take 4 damage ranks. And there are 2 types of damage. There's failure damage, when it's something like a mental or a social task, so you're trying to convince a guard to let you through, or you're trying to woo someone. Or it can be actual damage, which is physical damage when you're trying to harm them. Now the really clever bit is that the damage comes off your quality ranks. So if you take 4 ranks of damage, 4 qualities 1 step each, or 1 quality 4 steps, or anything there in between. And it's free for you to distribute that damage how you would. So for example, if you've got a good 2 brawling skill, for 1 rank you might reduce it to a average 0 brawling skill. Now the kicker is when you get down to -2, you can't reduce it anymore. So once all of your skills get down to -2, i.e. they're all poor, the next time you take damage, then it's called zeroing out, and then you are out of that conflict. And it might be something as simple as you're knocked out or you're pushed out of the way, or if it's a dangerous situation, you could be killed. Now, what happens, I hear you ask, if I don't have an appropriate skill? Well, if you don't have an appropriate skill that applies, then you're just rolling average, so you're rolling a straight 2d6 with no additions at all. At the end of the scene, you recover some damage, and depending on the rules set, which we'll come into later, that could be anywhere from a 1d6 in damage, or if it's failure damage, which is temporary, then that automatically recovers at the end of a scene, while actual damage, physical damage, then that recovers at a slower rate or a random rate. The way improvement or XP works is you get experience points through the game, and then you can spend those experience points to increase your ranks. So if you've got an average sailor rank, which is 0, for 1 point you can increase it to a good +2 sailor rank. And the maximum you can get any rank to is +6, or you can spend all 4 of your experience points to gain a completely new rank at good +2. And that is the simple of the core game. When these rules initially came out in 2004, there were 2 different systems that used the PDQ system. And I think I forgot to mention who the author of these rules is, which is awfully rude of me. It's Chad Underkoffler. So the 2 systems that were released with the PDQ system are Monkey, Ninja, Pirate, Robot, and these were both released in 2004. That's about, well, obviously, monkey, ninjas, pirates and robots who roam the streets, stealing sweet uranium, challenging each other for their mojo, and sometimes banding together to defend the Earth from alien invaders. It's the modern world with the logic of cartoons. You start off with 4 quality ranks at good +2, 1 average rank of either monkey, ninja, pirate or robot, and 1 weakness at -2. And each of the PCs has a trait called Mojo, which are hero points. And you can use those hero points for powering type-specific powers and for gaining for experience. So that was the first one that was released. It added a few extra little rules to the core rules with vehicles, which again started with qualities, similar in the way they are Fate, and added toys, which are items with qualities. So you could have like a +2 rope or a +4 sword or something like that, which you could add if you used it in an appropriate situation, would add to your roll. On the same year Monkey Ninja Pirate Robot came out, a very different game came out called Dead Inside. This is a horror fantasy game based around the concept of characters who have lost or were born without their souls. These Dead Inside strive to regain or rebuild their souls. The game provides a variety of means by which souls may be lost, stolen, traded, regained or rebuilt. So it's a very different game, a very intense game, a bit of horror in there. And it changed it ever so slightly in that one of the qualities that you started with had to be a type, and it renamed Mojo Soul Points. And the beauty of this PDQ system is it's very easy to bolt other things on. And as we see other games that came out after these 2 initial ones, some of them changed it not changed it, but added to it in quite different ways. So those were the 2 initial rules. So now what we'll do is we'll look at some of the other variants that have come out in the meantime. So, what does every good rule system need? Of course, it needs a supers game. And 2005, for the PDQ system, came out Truth and Justice, which was a superhero game. And as there are superheroes, obviously, it changed up the qualities a little bit. So, one, you had to pick your background and history, your motivation, which was your driving goal for your super, and then you had 5 quality ranks that you choose from. You had to pick an origin where your powers came from, and you started with 3 powers. And these were something that normal humans don't have. and it included things like stunts. So, for example, flight or flame. So you'd have a power like that no normal human could have, but which was make you your superhero. It had hero points, which you started with 5, and you had a code name, which was your super's name, and you defined your uniforms. And the powers chart was an intensity chart, which was later used for magic. And it was a great chart, and I'm probably going to talk about that more in some of the other systems that came out for it, because the way the magic and the power system works, it's freeform, and it was very, very good. Then in 2006 came probably my favourite version of the PDQ rules, is the Xantabulous Sorcerer of Zo. What a great name that is. So, once upon a time in the Xantabulous land of Zo, tailors faced giants, enchanted queens danced with human peasants, talking creatures perform domestic duties, witches cast curses, and fairies grant blessings, and all are seeking their happily ever after. Basically, it's a fairy tale setting set in the land of Oz. And Chad, when he released this, trimmed down the PDQ rules and called this PDQ Lite. So he trimmed a lot of the fat off the rules and kept it nice and simple. So you had 6 quality ranks to start with, 1 weakness. You had a special move which was attached to one of your qualities, and the special move also meant that one of your other qualities was reduced by 1 rank. You had 5 hero points, which in this game were very much like bennies or fate points where you spent to do things. And then you had learning points, which were your XP. It also introduced 2 new parts of magic. There was gifts and magic stars. So gifts is a very narrow quality, and it also introduced magic stars. And any quality with the magic star had an asterisk after it, and that was your spell casting ability. So if you had witch, you were a witch, but if you had witch star, that means you were a witch, and you also had spell casting abilities. Now, the off-putting thing about this Xantabulous Sorcerer of Zo is that half the book is Chad talking about how he runs this campaign. Now, if you're not into how RPGs are run, then you're going to find half the book complete waste of time. But if you've never RPG before, you get some really good insight of how to run a campaign, what sort of things will crop up. Also in 2006 came Ninja Burger 2nd Edition. This was a sect of noble ninjas who have taken to secretly delivering fast food meals anywhere, anytime, within 30 minutes or less. And if they fail to deliver those meals in the prescribed time, the ninjas commit seppuku. Ninja Burger started off as a joke website back in 1999, and the first edition of the rule RPG used a different rules engine. But for the 2nd edition, they changed to PDQ. So basically, you pick a job. Everybody is a average ninja to start with, and you have 3 other quality ranks and 1 weakness. You have 2 D6 honor points, and these are your action points and XP rolled into 1. What Ninja Burger also added was bad guys were split into 5 sizes. So for example, you had kid size, small, medium, large, and super. And just like the characters are described in qualities, so too are the bad guys. And I will describe some monsters and NPCs later, so you get an idea of how they are attributed in PDQ. So although we've had a fairy tale setting, we've had no real fantasy setting for PDQ. This was about to be addressed in 2007 with Questers of the Middle Realm. And this was the first licensed PDQ title. And it's basically a comedic fantasy game, which is a parody of D&D. Form a character in Questers, you pick a race, and each race has a good +2 and a poor -2 associated to the race. So you'd have +2 good dwarf and -2 poor dwarf. So you'd use your good dwarf for doing dwarven things like stone cutting or underground, and you'd use your poor dwarf for things like climbing trees, something that dwarves are not well known for. You'd also have a personality hawk, which is your virtue and your vice, which are not qualities but a way to earn virtue points. And you'd have 5 quality ranks and 1 fortune point. And because items are something quite prevalent in fantasy games. It added props, which are special items that are not part of your character and can be lost. And these may add a bonus. You could have like a good +2 longsword or a one-shot bonus potion. They introduced 3 types of magic. You had miracles from your god, thaumaturgy, which is spellbook and wand, and mysticism, which is supernatural. And again, it reuses the magic intensity table. And I will now have a look at how this magic intensity table works. So the way the magic effects table work is down the left hand side we have our rank modifiers. So you have poor -2 up to master +6. Then on each row of those you have a time and duration of the spell, the range, the area, the number of subjects, the weight, and the force and the energy. So for example, a poor spell would have 1 action and reaction, which would last for up to 5 minutes. You'd have a range of touch, or up to 12 inches. The area would be 1 yard. A number of subjects would be 1. The weight would be objects up to 1 hand in weight. And a force would be a punch, and energy would be a candle. So if you were to do a poor spell, that would be a target number of 5, and what you would do is you would roll your spellcasting ability and you describe to the game master what you were trying to do, and if you hit a 5 then you would do that spell at that level. So for example, it could be something as simple as touching someone to punch them. But if you wanted to do the spell at a higher level, then first of all you would have to hit the poor to try and maintain that. And the next round, if you wanted to increase it, then you would increase it to average. So you'd be looking at a score of 7 for the difficulty. So you'd have to pass 2 tests. And for that, it would be up to 1 turn or 30 minutes time and duration. The range would extend to 10 yards. The area would be a room or 25 square yards. You could affect up to 10 subjects. If you were lifting, you could lift a heavy person up to 250 pounds. The force you were using would be full tilt or body check. Only energy would be equivalent to a campfire. And for each level, this would increase. So you'd have to pass a number of checks to get up to master. You'd have to pass the poor check at 5, the average check at 7, the good check at 9, the expert check at 11, and then finally the master check at 13. And if you failed at any of those attempts, then this spell doesn't work, and maybe you have some backblast, or maybe some effects that would happen against you. So there's like a risk and reward, but it means that you can think of spells on the fly, and then you can decide how you're going to do them. So it's a great system. The other thing that Questers also adds was a bestiary. And so there are some example beasts in there, and also to design your own. And as said, I would tell you what a beast looks like, or a monster. So this is how a dragon would be described. He's master +6 large, expert +4 predator, expert +4 intelligence, expert +4 willpower, good +2 personality trait, expert +4 keen senses, expert +4 breath weapon, star, which is an arcane quality based on mysticism, expert +4 flight, expert +4 long lived, good +2 hide, +1 to 2 good +2 dragon magic qualities. And there would be poor -2 large and poor -2 vanity. So you can see from the descriptor there how a monster is designed. So the next system to be released, which was 2 years after Questers, was by the same author, Tim Gray, which is Jaws of the Six Serpents. And this is the one that is just bubbly under for me. It's close to being my favourite, but it's basically a serious swords and sorcery. I was strong on action focus think of things like the wuxia movies and stuff like that. So you have a good quality race, a good faculty, which is an innate quality for you, a good motivation, and 5 quality ranks. 1 weakness, 1 fortune point, and you start with 0 learning points. And this also adds dark learning points, which are like extra powers you can use, but may increase your sanity or humanity as you turn towards the dark side of magic. And what Tim also added in Jaws of the Sixth Serpent was danger levels. Was before it was left up to the GM to decide what sort of recovery would occur from damage and failure, and how it affected people in the scene. This added 3 different types of danger levels. A drama level, which was the sort of the default from PDQ up to that, when you're taken out of the scene. A risk, which was maybe end up with a scar or a permanent weakness, or a doom, which could result in character death or crippled. So when one of your qualities is reduced to 0, that is, all the other qualities are at -2, and your first one goes below -2. If it was a drama game, then you'd only be out of the scene. But if you were in a risk situation, then you could end up with a permanent scar, which might be you lost one of your arms. It might be temporary blindness in your eyes. You'd have like a poor vision, -2 in one of your eyes. Or if you're in a doom scenario, a doom scene, then you could be crippled or character death. The other thing which Jaws the Sixth Serpent also added was minions, which was NPCs with a small number of qualities, usually 1 or 2 good qualities. So, for example, you could have a minion thug, which is good at intimidation and good at brawling, and those would be their 2 qualities. And it also added multiple minions could fight as a single character with advantage, so that you could get more of the sort of the minions together and use them as a group. And it used the same magic system as Zoe and Questers. Sorcery is either big and powerful, and charms with like specific knowledge or abilities. There was no bestiary included, but a pick list of qualities and how to design monsters is very good. Right, so that was PDQ, and then we got to the point of PDQ Sharp. What is PDQ Sharp, I hear you ask? In 2009, Swashbucklers of the Seven Skies was released. And Swashbucklers, because it was a sword fighting game, added more crunch to better represent the PDQ rules. And there is a free PDF that's available, which is called PDQ Sharp, which is the Swashbucklers of the Seven Skies rules with all the copyright stuff taken out, so that you can play with the core rules. So what's the difference between PDQ and PDQ Sharp? Well, basically the qualities were replaced with fortes, but mechanically they were the same. Weaknesses were called foibles, but they were no longer poor -2, they were more like a fate aspect. And it also added techniques, which were cool and useful abilities, which were not quite fortes, but they let you re-roll one of your dice or add a +1. For the first time, the Master chart was extended, and although the qualities still went from poor -2 to Master +6, we now had target numbers extended to 15 impressive, 17 intimidating, 19 impossible, and 21 inconceivable. You got training points, which were the XP, and you get one for every failed roll. So basically, when you failed a roll, you got training points, which was to reward you for failure. It introduced style points, which were like hero points, but somewhat more complex, because not only did they affect dice rolls, but they were also a wealth mechanic, and you could exchange them for temporary gear or money. So that was Swashbucklers of the Seven Skies and PDQ Sharp. In 2009 came out Vox. This took parts of PDQ Sharp and basically rewrote it, and they called it PDQ2, which was the crunchy bits of PDQ Sharp minus the swashbuckling elements. And Vox is it's a strange one to explain. Basically, it's sort of like voices in your head, and it's like a weird and wonderful, I know, a bit like Anonymous, I suppose. Yeah, I've never quite got Vox, but hey, some people out there like it. And the last one of the PDQ line is Achtung Cthulhu, which came out in 2012. In the Achtung Cthulhu universe, it's set during World War II, where a band of Allied heroes fight the secret war against the Nazi Black Sun and their rivals, Nachtwolf. Powered with ancient secrets and terrible mythos and mythos allies, the Black Sun and Nachtwolf are on the verge of unleashing terrible weapons upon the Allied forces. And this has got revised PDQ rules for full wartime horror, including fear and madness mechanics, sanity, action and mythos dice, giant creatures, and tanks. So that is the PDQ system. As I say, it's a cracking little system, not very well known. For me, it's easier to understand than Fate. I love the free-form idea with qualities and what they bring. And as you can see from the look at these different types of systems that have used PDQ, it's a very adaptable system. And if you get the core rules, you can bolt on extra bits as you need and reduce it. So there's some really wonderful things there. So if you ever fancy a PDQ game, then look at one of those. So I would recommend something like Jaws or the Six Serpents or the Xantabulous Sorcerer of So to get started with. And there we go. That's my review of PDQ. So that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening. I'll see you all on the flip side. For more information, check out my website at petejones.neocities.org.